Here's what you can look forward to on this episode of The Nice Guys on Business.
As you were talking about, like with the culture and it being so founder centric and both part reflecting your personalities and also your vision, as the complexity, grows, detaching that and creating a culture that will exist in and of itself on its own, independent, still influence, but more independent, is really critical. And in doing that, it takes some intention. And really, if you can, there's 3 steps with a culture that are really helpful if you define it, not just what's in your head and that felt sense that, as Meg said, everybody kind of has organically, but really define what do you want, what do you need it to be, and then demonstrate it. And demonstrate it through actions, but also in what do you reward, what do you recognize, and then defend it. And defending it is probably the most important step.
I told Bill that if they move my desk one more time, then I'm quitting. I'm going to quit. They moved my desk 4 times already this year. I used to be over by the window, and I could see the squirrels, and they were merry, but then they switched from the swing line to the Boston stapler. But I kept my swing line stapler because it didn't bind up as much, and I kept the staples for the swing line stapler, and it's not okay because if they take my stapler, then I'll set the building on fire, and I might even start listening to the Nice Guys on Business podcast. That'll teach them. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by Turnkey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, Nice Guy community, get ready to level up your leadership game because today we're talking growth, grit, and the magic of getting people aligned with purpose. Our guests are Meg Crosby and Howard Cleveland. They're the powerhouse duo behind PeopleCap Advisors and creators of Growth. Is it the Growth Gauntlet? Did I say that right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys remember. Do you remember a show with who the heck was it? It was called The Gauntlet. It was Dirty Harry, Clint Eastwood. Do you remember that show?
Oh my goodness.
It's an old movie, but it is about a gauntlet. Now, this is a better gauntlet, Nice Guy community. It's a proven roadmap for scaling companies without losing your culture or your sanity. Whether you're hiring your first team or steering a rocket ship, Meg and Howard are here to help you grow smarter, lead better, and win with your people. Meg and Howard, I'm excited to talk to you. Welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Thank you, Doug. We're happy to be here.
I know that you are on a powerhouse podcast tour. I know you've talked to many hosts. It's funny in talking to podcast hosts, you probably find out a lot about your market that you either realized and are reinforcing or maybe didn't realize. What's one of the reasons why you even started a business that you're in right now? Where do you find that your gifts fit into the business that you guys run?
Well, I think we started this business. We ran into each other. We'd known each other a long time. We started the business about 12 years ago. We realized we had complementary skill sets. Howard is a recovering attorney in labor and employment, and I'm a recovering HR person. So we have always had people at the center of what we do, and our core belief is that people drive results. So when we first got together, I remember thinking, this is so exciting. I wonder what people will actually pay us to do. We have this really broad skill set. But I think what we have ultimately settled on is working with high growth companies that are growing and scaling and trying to help them build sustainable, healthy, successful organizations.
All right. So Howard, let me direct this to you. Where do you find that most companies, I'm going to start with the positive because I'm a positive guy and it is called the Nice Guys on Business podcast. Where do you think that most companies go right? And then Meg, I'm going to come over to you and find out where do you think that most companies not go wrong, but where could they really use their improvement? So Howard, let's start with where do most companies go right?
Yeah, a lot of our clients are working with incredible ideas and a really, really good small team. And they've got passion and they've built culture around the founder. And they've got people that are very aligned in where they're going. And so starting off and being really focused on the customer and customizing things to make sure the customer is happy is a really positive stage for a lot of our clients. And as they move through that, sometimes things shift a bit.
Meg, Howard made a really valuable point, and it is the culture is designed around the leader of an organization. And I remember when Strick and I started Turnkey Podcast Productions, we designed the culture, even when we only had one team member, or maybe even it was when the two of us, we designed the entire culture of it around what we wanted, which was exemplary customer service, putting the dollar second and putting the people first. How is that scalable though when you start to work with an organization? And is that an area where they go quote unquote wrong? They lose their sight or their vision for what they planned on, when they first started the company?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the culture has to evolve as the company grows and scales, and the culture has to evolve to be in service to the strategy, to the business strategy. One of the things that we see a lot, and I wouldn't call it a failure, I would call it a very common challenge that companies face, is that when they're in that small startup phase, where there's a small team, one team, working closely together in close proximity, that culture is really organic. And we often hear people, as the company grows, describe the culture as a family. And as the company grows to the next phase, where it maybe becomes bigger and there are a lot more people, you've got those complexities of communicating with many, many more people. The culture doesn't spread as organically anymore. And we learn that what the big shift that needs to happen in the culture is to infuse some accountability into the culture that typically it sort of decreases as you get more people, but not everybody is working so closely together. That accountability kind of decreases. And so, how do you promote accountability as the company grows, and how do you make sure your culture embraces accountability? And so that's a critical thing that we see often.
Howard, one of the areas within law I know, which is so challenging for many attorneys as a recovering attorney, maybe I'll direct this question to you. It's the desire or the must to micromanage the people on your team, and I know that probably is a culture killer in many organizations, right? So, how do you step away from the idea of using the essence of what the founders have created and being able to disseminate that through all the ranks, so that the owners can actually step away at some point and say, I've created this great culture, which is terrific. I don't want to micromanage it. How do you have the ability to step away from micromanaging? And I think I'm directing this to the right person here.
Well, I love the comparison, or at least the reference to employment law, because it's such a different focus. It's still around people and leadership, but in that focus, a lot of what you're trying to do is protect. And so you're looking to document issues with employees. And then in what we're doing, you're looking to develop employees. And so as you were talking about, like with the culture and it being so founder centric, and both part reflecting your personalities and also your vision, as the complexity, grows, detaching that and creating a culture that will exist in and of itself on its own, independent, still influence, but more independent, is really critical. And in doing that, it takes some intention. And really, if you can, there are 3 steps with a culture that are really helpful if you define it. Not just what's in your head and that felt sense that, as Meg said, everybody kind of has organically, but really define, what do you want? What do you need it to be? And then demonstrate it, and demonstrate it through actions, but also in what do you reward, what do you recognize, and then defend it. And defending it is probably the most important step.
Meg, how can you tell when an organization is out of sync with the growth of their culture? They're trying to create this environment, and it's almost like you're trying too hard. You're trying too hard. You've just got to relax and surrender. Hopefully, you've put the right people on the bus to go with you. But how do you know what are some of the symptoms that an organization that is out of sync is experiencing as they are growing?
Well, I think the first thing we look for is friction. So, one of the things we do as consultants is go into an organization and survey and interview lots of different folks. And so when we find points of misalignment or points of friction, we begin to look at the culture and understand where those are coming from. One of the things that we see often, particularly as hungry companies are trying to grow and scale, and it goes back to what Howard was saying about defending your culture, is that they really find it challenging to make some hard decisions. So, for example, they may bring in an employee who is a huge revenue generator, somebody who lands the whales, but there's a trail of dead bodies right around them. They're a toxic employee. They're making life miserable for folks. They're starting to experience turnover because of this person, but nobody wants to fire the whale because they're responsible for so much revenue. And that's where it becomes really important to make that determination to defend your culture. And if you really want that culture, there's a great maxim: your culture is the worst behavior you're willing to tolerate. So if you're going to tolerate that bad behavior, then that becomes part of your culture, and nobody wants that. So, that defending that culture and saying no to the toxic employee is really important.
It's like the weakest link. You're defined by your weakest link. I love how you shared that, and that'll be a highlight in the show notes, I'm sure. Howard, did you have anything to add to that? I know that you were either writing notes or you were thinking about what you wanted to say to that.
No, Meg covered it. It's just that, if you tolerate it, and so that defending is really calling out what's not, but also recognizing what is in alignment.
I want to go back to some of the systems and processes that are within an organization that's experiencing some rapid growth. And I want to talk about for a second the idea of stepping out of the way and either delegating or bringing somebody else on to handle a responsibility like that. Either one of you can handle this question, I'm sure. What is something that an entrepreneur that is building a business that's scaling rapidly, or an organization that's in growth mode, what's one thing or something that they're maybe not delegating yet or should be thinking about delegating right out of the gate?
Well, I like to think about the progression of companies, across 4 stages of growth. And when you are starting as a startup, employees are generalists. Obviously for a small team, you're the chief cook and bottle washer. You're planning the strategy, you're writing the checks, and you're taking the trash out. I had a job once where I fired the CEO and did the Costco run. So it was.
Got it.
You're a generalist and you wear a lot of hats. And as the company grows, you start to shed those hats. New employees are added, and you start to give those hats away. So there's a progression where employees specialize. Mm-hmm. The same is true for leaders. And as a CEO or a founder moves through the progression of, the growth of the company, I like to use the analogy of a band. So, in the beginning, they're part of maybe it's a trio, maybe it's a duo when they start, and then a trio. And so the leader is playing an instrument at the same time they're in this partnership with other folks. But as the organization grows, the leader becomes a player coach, then becomes maybe the director of the other players, and takes himself out of the responsibilities of playing an actual instrument, and then eventually becomes the conductor of the whole symphony. Meaning there's a leadership team, their first chairs that they lead, and those people have delegated responsibility. So the CEO really has to work hard to delegate, exactly like you said, to ensure, to build the trust and the confidence, to raise up other leaders in the organization to take on that responsibility, so that the CEO himself or herself can level up and do the things that only he or she can do, like strategy.
Howard, what's something that an organization is maybe stuck in? What rut are they stuck in before they realize it's time to get in touch with Howard and Meg? I mean, how could somebody that's listening to this say, "Oh, I'm experiencing exactly what Meg and Howard are describing here. It's time for me to get on the phone and call them. I'm not using this as a sales pitch opportunity, nice guy community. I want to know just for my sake, because I keep thinking, I wonder if I'm experiencing as an organization, we're in a growth phase. We're a team of 15 or 16 people. We've delegated, we've gone through some of the processes. I think we've installed our culture into the people that are, in our organization. But I don't know, am I experiencing something? What should I be thinking about and what should I be experiencing in order for me to know it's time to call Meg and Howard?
Well, Meg, you want to start with this?
Sure. So I would say I go back to the same word, friction. So if the first thing that people tend to reach out to us about is when they're having a challenge in their company. And so we love to come in and help solve problems and mediate and try to find the root cause of things.
Mm-hmm.
A perfect example, we worked with an organization that had a great growth opportunity in front of them. They had just taken on investment from a private equity firm, and they had as much revenue as they could grab, but the limiting factor was talent. They needed to hire people and get them up to productivity really quickly, and they hadn't really worked through. They didn't have the talent management processes from recruitment through training fully developed to make that happen. They had not developed a culture where their employees felt really engaged in
Mm-hmm.
recruiting and training and doing that work. And they didn't really have the capacity to do it. And so that was their limiting factor. So we worked with them to make those changes. So I think when your business is at an inflection point where you're trying to grow and get to the next level, but you're not really sure how to do it, then we're, it's great to work with us. We enjoy doing that.
Do you guys find that it is at a employee number count? Do you find that it's at a revenue dollar? Is it at what's the measuring stick by which we could even generally look?
Well, I would say that because our sweet spot is people, we begin to work with people with companies when they have at least 25 employees, or critical mass, right? And they're starting to grow and scale, and they're probably going to add to that in the next year or so, and that's going to change the culture, make things a little more complex. And so I'd say 25 to 50, but all the way up to 1,000 and beyond. So that's generally our sweet spot. Howard, would you add to that?
Yeah, and just as far as like looking at the stages of growth, when we started, we really kind of wanted to put a number there because people like a number. When do I need this? When do I, at what point? And there's really not. And different organizations require more people sometimes to do the same number of jobs. Sometimes, especially software supported, things you can do a lot of work and grow and actually hit an inflection point long before somebody with a lot of people. And so there's not an exact science. It really is that inflection point that Meg was talking about is in, the maxim, the Marshall Goldsmith. But when what got you here isn't getting you there and it's no longer working, then it's really time to look. And, one of the places that shows up a lot of times is when you have the opportunity to take the next step, that leadership team individually starts coming up with their own ideas and they start having independent visions. And so if there is a tension, if there is sort of a separation and lack of alignment, meetings before meetings, meeting after meetings, yes. That's one of those inflection points. But it really is that point where what's really been working either has stalled out or is now actually starting to feel rough.
I worked for a couple of companies early on in my career. I've been a self-employed entrepreneur for the last 30 plus years, but I do remember a number of times early on when I worked for some big organizations in the healthcare sector. I'm not going to mention any company names, but you'd have these meetings. They'd want to set the agenda of the meeting at another meeting before the meeting so that everybody was on the same page. And I kept thinking, isn't this the purpose of the meeting? Why are we having this pre-meeting for the meeting with these secret people? It just seems to be a little, that to me would be a telltale sign that it's time to bring in Howard and Meg to do a little work for our team. Does that sound right?
Yes, absolutely. And we worked with an organization that had a different problem, but every time we scheduled a meeting with some leaders, we would schedule a meeting with like 5 people, and then we'd show up, there'd be 25 people there. They would share the meeting invite with their team. And what we determined, the reason they did that and what we what we discovered was there's just really low trust. So they felt like, everybody wanted to be in the meeting and at the table, but I mean, that grinds your productivity to a halt. If you've got to have 25
Yeah.
people, it's an ineffective meeting. You're taking that many people offline for productivity. And so we really had to do a lot of work to build the trust and to also to kind of define some parameters, some decision parameters around who has the authority to make decisions. And you guys just got to stop inviting all these people,
I would think that the companies that are heavy into innovation and heavy into the empowerment space, meaning they give their employees decision-making capabilities and they're big in innovation. They have their meetings about innovating new ideas, new concepts. I would find that they would be the most receptive to what your programs would be all about. I'm just curious. I didn't have this prepared or anything, but is that fair?
No, I think that's really fair. In the foundation of that innovation and having people innovate is that trust, in the ability and the humility to delegate and not try to keep things, so closely, close to the vest. And so to be able to empower somebody and delegate, once you have that trust, what innovation also includes is conflict and the ability to throw out ideas, challenge ideas,
Yes.
try to get to the best thing. And so when that can happen openly and there's that much trust, yes, then, the focus is on the people. Their focus is really on how do we bring out the best. And that's where we, partner really well. It's easiest to partner with the people who already get it.
Yeah, I think about innovation. When I think about innovation, I think about trust, compassion, empathy. Those four words kind of all fit together, and that seems to be a ripe environment for somebody that's looking to make improvements. If it's okay with you guys, I'd love to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about your book for a couple of moments. Are you good with that?
It works.
Sure.
Okay, perfectly. So, Nice Guy Community, just so you're aware, Meg and Howard, they're the authors of a new book called Running the Gauntlet. It's a must-read for founders, CEOs, and leadership teams that are navigating the wide range of scaling a high-growth company. The book really introduces the Growth Gauntlet framework, and we'll talk about that quickly. And it's packed with real-world case studies and practical tools. It's like a roadmap for scaling smart and avoiding costly missteps and building a business that's built to last. We'll make sure we add a link in the show notes for that. I'm just curious, what was the motivation behind writing the book? You guys are 12 years in. You're at a good pace right now. Are you trying to just reach a broader audience, or was it you just wanted to document your ideas and get them out there so that you have a legacy to lend to the future?
Yeah, I think that it's really the latter. We developed this methodology, this framework that we call the Growth Gauntlet, and we have used it with our clients, and we have gotten just a lot of great feedback and encouragement to hatch this into the world and to write the book behind it. So that's how we came to do it. The framework itself is composed of 6 imperatives that we believe leaders must use to build healthy, strong organizations, and we chart those across 4 stages of growth. And it's just been fun to put that framework in front of folks and see how they light up and find themselves in it and begin to see where they need to go next based on where they are today. It really is like a roadmap. You can find you are here and here's where you need to go next.
What I found when I wrote a book just on my own, this is going back 10 years ago, I wrote a book called Nice Guys Finish First. And the biggest challenge was just getting the ideas, the stories, the outline in front of me. I can only imagine the added challenge when you add a co-author onto that book. Howard, how was that for the two of you? How's the dynamic work between you and Meg for that?
It was actually just the opposite.
Really?
It's one of these things that I couldn't have done it individually. I wouldn't even have thought to do it. And the way that we, approached it was, and the way that we've been fortunate in our entire business is one of just taking things and throwing it out on the table without ownership or defensiveness and just shooting at it. And so that ability, sort of that humility and curiosity of doing it just allowed it to get better and better. But it wasn't, I think the key part and where the book really took off is when we brought experts in. And when we hired a developmental editor who, helped us tear it apart and really look at it and see where this is where you're trying to go or where you're trying to go. Like, how can we, get there, what's your best thinking about this? And then, as we got insights from clients and from other experts to fold that in. And so it really is the running the gauntlet is the product of a village that we were fortunate enough to pull together along the way. And so it's been just working with Meg has been easy. Working with other people has been really fulfilling as well and helpful.
Decades of experience between the two of you guys, over 12 years working together on programs like this. Meg, any standout opportunities or star highlights that you want to share with our audience before we wrap up today?
Highlights from the book or highlights from life, or
you get to pick. Look, if you go to life, I'm happy to share with you as well. So yeah, give me some life highlights. I love that idea.
Well, I mean, I think just mostly career highlights, I guess. We've been so fortunate to work with so many organizations in lots of different ways. I mean, I have worked for large and small organizations, and now have had the experience of serving on 3 corporate boards. I'm currently the lead director for a wealth management company. So I'm learning a lot about governance and really enjoy that experience. So I think our book, just to tie it all back, one of the things we've done with the book was to provide questions at the end of each chapter that we think CEOs should ask their leadership team, and boards should be asking their CEOs. Both Howard and I are very intellectually curious, and a lot of our work revolves around asking good questions. We think that is incredibly important, and we think that good questions begin good conversations, and good conversations are really the impetus and the energy behind evolution and change. So we hope that our book promotes conversations and change and growth. And that's what's really important to us. That's probably the highlight for us.
Well, they're the team of Cleveland and Crosby. Sounds like a good folk rock band. So you guys probably doing any musical prowess in your past, Howard, Meg?
Absolutely not. I am an excellent listener and fan.
Understood.
And I love karaoke. That's about it.
Oh, that's what. Okay, hold on. This is a good question then. What's your do you have a go-to karaoke song?
Well, Brown Eyed Girl is
Van
one
Morrison,
that's
nice.
been in my back pocket for a
Yep.
long time. Yeah, that's probably it.
That is awesome. Yeah, my partner Strickland and I, we are avid fans of karaoke. Definitely, Rapper's Delight and The Devil Went Down to Georgia are two go-to songs for me.
Oh, yeah.
And Strickland is so good. My partner's so good that he was. We both come from a musical background. We were represented by the same agency, and we got in business together. This is probably almost 30 years ago now, and he's the kind of guy that you could go to karaoke with. And you could basically put him up on stage. It's called Kamikaze Karaoke. And you just pick the song and he sings it.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So any ballad, any rock song, anything. Howard, I don't know. This is kind of not for the faint at heart. It sounds like you would not be game for that.
No, we used to in Memphis. We used to host the Folklance Festival, the National Folklance, and they would bring in all these folk singers and singer-songwriters, and flood the clubs in town, and then they would go back to hotels to sing. And I came in, I was following this one person, and they're like, "So what instrument do you play?" And I was like, I don't, I'm just a fan. And they're like, well, our work doesn't exist without you. So come on in.
Nice.
And so I am truly just a fan. There's not even any karaoke in there. That's worthless.
Meg and Howard, are there any questions that I should be asking you that I'm not? I want to make sure we give you an opportunity to promote whatever else that you have going on. I know the book and the business are two big things that we want to make sure that we get into the show notes so our Nice Guy community can take advantage of that. Anything that I'm missing to ask you, though? I want to make sure I got it all covered.
I think you've covered all of it. We'd love for anyone to reach out to us through LinkedIn. You can find us there. PeopleCap Advisors is the name of our company. We have a wonderful website, www.peoplecap.com. And you can even schedule a meeting with Howard and I through our website, through Calendly. So we'd love to hear from anyone who's interested in leveling up.
Meg, what I realized after I gave you the opportunity to promote those links, I thought maybe I don't know, does she know which ones? Because I know you're new at the podcasting space, and man, the last handful or few episodes that you've gone on, those hosts must have done a great job, because you promoted it superbly. Howard, I give her A+. How about you?
Absolutely.
Hey, thanks for being here, Meg and Howard. I really appreciate you sharing your message with our community today. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you so much, Doug.
Hey, Nice Guy community, never underestimate the power of nice. Again, special thanks to Meg and Howard. All their information, including access to their book and their website, all of their LinkedIn links, and access to their schedule will all be right there in the show notes. Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
Are you sure the legal department cleared this? Okay then. For the Nice Guys on Business, I'm Steve O'Brien. Hey, if these bozos want to get sued, that's their business. Leave me out of it. Wait, we have a legal department?